Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to build basically a limitless cold email system. Um, I'll go through the cost of what it would do to do this without our own tool, and you can decide. But basically, we're going to go through in this series. This is going to be a series. So today is going to be about B2B cold email, and then next week we're getting a guest on, and we're going to be talking about B2C. B2C is going to be a little bit different because if you're doing B2C, which stands for business to consumer cold email, you're essentially building a newsletter. Whether you like it or not, you're still building a newsletter. Because what happens with B2C cold email is the industry average for open rates for cold email is quite low because people don't like being emailed on their personal email. Even if it's intent, it's still not going to be, you're still not going to have everybody just buying on that first email. Really what you're going to do is you're going to do about maybe 2 to 3, even 5 emails, and then you're going to bring people into a newsletter, and that's how you're going to convert leads. We have a ton of people doing newsletter marketing, and that's basically the strategy we use for B2C. I'll share in the school exactly where you can find that, but next week we're going to go over how to use this same structure, but for B2C. So today we're going to go B2B, which is, a little bit easier. And this is talking about, reaching out to businesses. Main differences is when you do B2C, you focus more on going direct and, you can be more personal. Whereas B2B, when you do B2C, you don't want to go too personal because you're just going to freak people out. The chat here. Cool. All right. So, the first thing I'm going to do, and what I'm going to show you really is like the main core theme today is how to send 100K emails per month. And we're going to be doing it with our new tool, which is called Audience Send. If you guys have seen, essentially we created our own ESP. Now, an ESP stands for email service provider. And essentially what it is when you're using a tool like Instantly, so let's say for an example, how many people are using Instantly, Smart Lead, any of those tools? Cool. Okay. So when you use Instantly, essentially what you're doing is you are not using their domains, you're using your domain. So you're uploading, let's say, I think the general consensus is about, I think it's like 50 emails per day per inbox is what it usually comes down to. And the math of that is about, so let's say you do Instantly hypergrowth plan, it's $97. Then you got your Zoho Mail Lights, 30 to $50, Google Workspaces, domain purchase, setup, it doesn't cost anything. You got to verify the emails, instantly built in, make blah, blah. So you're looking at probably around like 400 to $500 to be able to send, to be able to send however many emails you want to send. So this is based off 100,000 emails. That's some math here. It may not be like exact, but you're talking about probably 400, $500 a month. To be able to send 100,000 emails and actually get them delivered. I mean, you could probably spend, $100, $50, spend 100,000 emails and they won't get delivered, but this is to get them delivered. Okay. So, that's what you do when you're using, not an email service provider. Now, an email service provider is different because essentially what this is if you're using, let's say, ActiveCampaign or you have MailChimp, let's say MailChimp, for an example, with MailChimp, when you are sending from MailChimp, you don't set up your own domains. You don't set up like 50 different domains. You're essentially tying your domain to MailChimp and then sending the emails out. The actual emails are being sent from MailChimp's server, and you're just using your domain purely as like almost like white labeling MailChimp's ESP. Does that make sense? So the difference between the systems are on Instantly and Smart Lead and any other tool, you're basically using your own inboxes. Whereas when you're using an ESP, what you're doing is you're basically just white labeling the email service provider, and you're sending from the email service provider, and then they reply and it goes back to your domain, but you're not sending from your domain. So what this means is a few things. First of all, it means unlimited sending, and I'm going to put a asterisk there because I want to get into what that means. And then it also means no warm up. It means 1 to 2 domains max. High deliverability and everything else. So it's a really simple and it's not complex setup. So that's basically what we're going to go through today in how to use audience send. Okay, so this is audience send. It is our own email service provider that we, a bunch of different partners, and we build it out, just a fancy interface here. And I will put the pricing in the chat if you guys want to use this over Insta or anything else. Again, it's an ESP. So what that means is everyone is actually going to be sending from our own email service provider, and you're just adding your domain purely as a branding purpose. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many domains you set up in here. You can just send all your emails just off one domain. So you could easily do 500,000, a million emails per month just from 1 or 2 domains. The only reason why you set up the domains is branding purposes, really, so that you can, so you're not sending from audience send. But you'll see when we set up the DNS records, everything is just being forwarded to audience send, which is the actual setup. Okay. Now, who's still with me on this one? Cool. All right. So let's go through how to set it up. So I will chuck a link soon I'll chuck a link once I finish this in terms of how to sign up for audience send. I think plans start at around, so you can get a free trial for 14 days and try it out. I think you can send a max 10,000 a month. But if you want to get up to, you can send up to 100,000 emails per month for $100. So, if you don't want to do it with any setup or anything like that, you can go through, get an account, you can start loading in the data. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And, because we have deep verified emails, all our emails are verified. Well, not all emails, I think a big chunk of them, I think 40% now. When I say 40% of our emails, I mean that, we have, at any given time, we have hundreds and hundreds of millions of emails, because we take emails for ads as well. So all you do is you build a list in Audience Lab, you download that list, you filter by deep verified emails. We might actually even have that tag in, which we're putting in today or tomorrow. Let me have a look here. So we've got our, business emails, and then we've got valid phones, which is coming in as well, which is great. But essentially what you do is you can go through, build a list, get the verified emails, and then push it through, and then you can start emailing right away. Now, a few things. I put unlimited sending as an asterisk here because this is an ESP. So what that means is that even though you can do unlimited sending and you could send 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 emails straight away, there is no warm up, but there is what we call ramp up. And this is different. So ramp up basically just means you're making sure that you're sending emails and keeping spam complaints low and testing an offer. Whereas warm up means you're, fully warming up the domains. You can't send anything. So you could start at about, let's say 1,000 sends per day to start off with. And then you could just upgrade this by about 30% each day. And that would be a good ramp up. If you want to go crazy, you can. But we need to keep the spam complaints under a certain amount. So that's why there is a process when you go through here and you create a free trial and you upload a list, there will be a notification that says, we're checking this list. I mean, this is just for Audience Lab customers. So we're generally okay with each list you put in. But we do as well, if there is certain spam complaints on each account, we do review it. So we actually have a manual review process, because if the spam rate goes too high, then it's going to hurt the ESP for everybody. So that's why it's more of a closed off thing. But But as long as you're pulling good data from Audience Hub, you're verifying your emails, and then you have good messaging, you should be good. Okay. So let's go in how to set it up. First of all, you'll be greeted with a dashboard. Looks like this. I went through basically I went through like, I think the interface a few weeks ago. I'll go through it again today. The first thing you want to do though, and I'll go over to here because I created a whole thing on audience send. Oops, where are we? First thing you want to do is you want to set up your sender domain. Okay. So even though audience sender is an ESP, you need your own domain because it's how people reply to you. And it's for branding purposes and compliance. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to here, to your dashboard. You're going to go to settings and you're going to go to sending domains. So I set up one last night just because sometimes it can take like an hour to, sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes a minute. I've got one here for deep verification. So what you'll do is if you go back here, you just click create new and you put in your domain and it will give you these fields here. Right. So you've got your text records. So you got a text record, you got your domain key. So this one here, which is your DKIM. Then you've got your SPF text, which is, well, I actually don't even know what it does. I mean, I'm not the email guy, but it's important. And then you've got your DMARC, which you can see here. It's setting postmaster at audience send. So it's not using your domain. It's using our ESP. Okay. So really easy to set these up. I actually, ahead of time, I did record a video on how to set these up, which should show here. Otherwise, I'll come back and re-upload it. I think it must need to, this syncs every day of any things that I upload. But it's super easy to set up. You just have to go into your domain DNS and you add it. Okay, so you just add these and these, and then you hit verify, and then you're good to go. All right. If you have any questions, hang on till the end, and I'll go through and I'll pump those out. If you have an issue getting the domain verified, I have seen when people use Cloudflare can take longer. What I recommend is that you actually just set up a domain just for this. So just because you do have to add records and you don't want to mess with any kind of deliverability of how you're receiving emails or sending emails from your main transactional email. So our website is Deep Verify, and I just bought the domain Deep Verification. Okay, and then you can just forward this domain to whatever website. So I would just go out and get a fresh domain for this. You don't have to warm it up, and you can just have the one domain. It doesn't really matter how many domains you have, but I would go out and just get a domain on GoDaddy or Namecheap, just because it's basically instant as soon as you create it and get it verified. If you are using it for, let's say, for an example, if I wanted to use this for my Deep Verify, it's connected to Lovable, and Lovable, we had to set up name servers there. So now it's going to be a huge headache getting that verified. So just get out and get a domain just for this. You only need the one. You don't need 50 domains. You just need one domain, and then you can create your center profiles based on how you want the branding to look, really. So the first thing, settings, setting domains, set up your domain, add your records, run them through approval, and then you're good to go. Okay. Then what you want to do is you need to set up your sender profiles. The sender profiles are basically just your inbox. So you can see here, I just created Adam, at deepverification.com. And what it does is, don't want to dox myself, give everybody address, but you go through here, put in your email, and then you'll get sent an email from Audience Send. And you need to make sure there's an actual email. So you can't just do like any random email. You need to actually make sure it's a real email, because when people reply to it, it's going to go into that inbox. It's the same as if you're going to use MailChimp. When you send an email in MailChimp, or when I send an email to you guys from ConvertKit and someone replies, it doesn't go in one Unibox or anything in ConvertKit. It goes into my actual email. Okay, so that's why you need your sending domain and your sender profile. So you set up your sending domain, you set up your sender profile, and now you can start your first email. All right, everybody on track with that? Everyone feel confident on this one? All right, cool. So moving ahead, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to upload your contact list. Now, we do have a semi-manual approach for contact lists. So I've already just imported a small list ahead of time. But really the rules are that one, they need to be verified emails. I mean, that's a given. And two, you don't go scraping emails. Make sure they're from Audience Lab. Don't just put in any random emails. You can put in emails from your current customers, so like from your mail list. So you can do that. There's no problem with that. But we just need it to be quality, because if we hit a certain spam complaint, then we just have to freeze that account, review it, because we can't have, taking down the ESP. So to upload your contacts, you'll just go to here, add contacts, and then you just select the file, and then you just upload. You can say it'll show up in here. It'll tell you a status, has duplicates. It'll show you what's approved, what's not, and then you put it in. What you can do as well is you can do a global suppression list. So this is essentially emails that you don't want to email, and you've got an optional suppression list as well. And this is people that the difference between the global suppression list and the optional suppression list is this is a list you can create just specific to a campaign, whereas this is global. If you put them in here, you're never going to email these people. You put them in here, it's just for a campaign. Now, what's cool about this is you can use this for your pixel as well. So instead of using Klaviyo or anything like that, you can use this for your pixel. People just asked me then, how do you automate it? How do you get it sent from Audience Lab automated into here? So I'm going to go into that because we are just about to release the Audience Send API. There's like 25 different endpoints you can do with the API to check your list and things like that. And we even have our deep verified make app too, which I'm going to show you guys how you can utilize. But I'll get into that I'll have to probably do this as a separate video because the API is not live yet. It's going to be live, or I think by weekend we should have that live. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's actually live and working now, but I just haven't got the documentation for it. So once we put that out, you will be able to use the API. You can use it in Make, you can use it in Native, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then we do obviously have our Deep Verify Make app, which is quite cool too. Okay, so once you upload your contacts, your suppression list, then you have your contacts in here. Pretty easy. Now, then what you can do is you can create your email. So when you're creating the email, you've got your email blast autoresponder. You can do email templates, sign-up forms, all that jazz. What I recommend doing is if you're doing, we're doing cold email for B2B. So you just need a simple email blast. So the email blast is you just need your name. If you have a suppression list, your list segment, and then you're good to go. So let's do test. We don't have a suppression list for this. Let's do Audience Lab cold list. Go to next. And then while that's getting set up as well, we'll get into, so we'll go here. So we're just picking our sender profile. So we're going to go deep verification here. Do it to its from, subject line. Okay, now, when you're inside this section here, you don't, because we're doing cold email, you don't want to do a bunch of cool templates and, all that stuff is great, but you don't really need it and it's going to affect your deliverability. So I wouldn't do anything with it. Instead, we set up a guide here. If you go into where it says generate your first email and we will do syntax, you can just do a very, very simple ChatGPT prompt to create your syntax. So all you do, I'll show you how we can use this. Give me a second. So we'll just go to ChatGPT. I'll just do this one totally off the cuff. I'll be like, write me a cold email for selling lead generation services to CRM softwares. So we'll just get our email written up. And then what you'll do is you'll grab this prompt here, write a cold name for service offer. You don't have to do all that. So basically, we're going to go like this. And we'll just go like that. Now you can do, some people go absolutely crazy with Spintax. You don't have to go too nuts. Really, it's just, I would say, you're looking at 10 to 20 variations of key phrases. If you do that, you're fine. You don't have to do even full phrases like I'm doing right now. Like I'm doing like full phrases. You can just do like the first few sentences. The goal is to just make it unique. So it's just not sending the same email over and over and over. So then what you do is you grab this, you go into this section here, you go into the HTML editor. Oops. Just so we can see and monitor and make sure there's nothing weird getting put in there because we want to make it as clean as possible. Now, when you paste it in here, you've put in your syntax. I'll just get rid of my subject line because I don't need that. You'll go to here, and when we'll preview, we'll be able to see basically our syntax, which is going to have a different email each time. If I've done this correctly, which I have. Cool. All right, so you got that. And then if I was to refresh it, it'd be a different one. Refresh it again, it'd be a different one. And then we have our syntax set up here. Very, very easy. Okay, so make sure before you go and write an email, you make sure this is no, this is no, this is yes. You can do this as yes, and it just means like they can easily click unsubscribe. What I recommend you do is, I mean, it's a hard one because I think with cold email, if I get a cold email from someone, the minute that I see at the bottom, it says reply, reply no, and I'll no longer email you. I know it's a cold email. So there's a bunch of creative ways you can do that. I mean, you can have that kind of CTA at the end, or you can have a, click to unsubscribe. You need to have some way for them to get off your list. Otherwise, they're going to spam complaint. And it's better for them to reply and say unsub. And yeah, it's good to have unsub headers to help with deliverability. It's better to have that than have them complain. So it really depends on like it definitely kind of like ruins the frame a little bit if you have it like straight at the end. So you want to kind of weave it in there, or even just have a click to unsubscribe works too. All right. So we've gone through setting up your sender domain, setting up your sender profile. We've gone through how to upload your list, and now we've gone through your first email blast. Everyone still with me on here? Cool. All right. I haven't gone through how to build a list because we do that every week, but I can go through how to do that as well, how we reverse engineer it, things like that. Then what you'll do is you can set up a test blast. So if you do test blast here, you'll just put in your email and you can see what that email actually looks like. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that the email lands in your inbox, and you want to make sure your syntax is correct because nothing can kill the frame. When I say frame, I mean like, the positioning faster than having syntax revealed in your email to the client. Um, okay. So once you create your blast, you're going to go to next. And then you schedule the email blast. Now, depending on how big your segment is, I would always just click this one, which is perfect timing. And this is basically it's like an AI type thing to figure out the timing. You can schedule it or you can send the blast right away. I would just do perfect timing. And then what will happen is it will go through and let's see, contact time. It will go through and then it will start scheduling and it will drip them out based on whatever time we think is best. If you do send now, it should still drip it as well. If you're doing like 100,000, I don't recommend just sending it out at once because let's say you have 100,000 people, you send out an untested email, it's an offer that you don't really feel confident about, like you haven't tested it prior, and people hate it. And they just hit the spam button. It's going to tank your account. You have set up a new sending domain, all that jazz. So what you want to do is I would always do perfect timing and then let it drip out. Even if you have, 100,000 emails that you want to do. Okay. If you were doing this through, you have the API, then what you want to do is you will probably just have this as constant perfect timing and then just push it out new leads each day through the API. But that's your first email blast. Now, you've got autoresponders, you've got email lists, you've got things like that I'll get into. The autoresponders is basically for you to create flows. So let's say, for an example, that you have your cold email blast that you're going to send out, and then you've got an autoresponder for more of like a campaign. So autoresponders, go through here, let's do a list, is essentially when, well, basically it's through here. 1 second. How do I respond to message? Where are we? There we go. So it's just based on trigger events. So if an email opens, email clicks, it's just sending some kind of automated reply. Or what I would really do instead of autoresponders is go to automations. And automations is more of like an actual flow. So you can do an autoresponder, which is, I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't use it as much. I was getting a little bit tripped up on autoresponder because I always use automation. But really, it's just basically if they click, they open, you can send a message and a follow-up. So what you could do is you could have autoresponder and you could have a follow-up email for anyone that's opened. And you could just say, hey, just checking up on this. But what I would recommend is actually just setting up an automation because an automation, what you can do is set this retrigger is you can set up a full workflow based on all the triggers here. So let's say for an example, let's go to choose event. Oh. So for an example here, you could have it where if they open and it's after a certain time and it's on this email and they don't, reply, then you could do a follow-up email on here. You can do as many events. You can do very complex setups on here. We've tested this quite a bit. I mean, we've done some pretty complex setups in the workflows. Um, you try break it, see how you go, but you basically can set up your automation and then you can set up your send email, automation, send email, and then you can do a really good cold email process. Now, I don't recommend you go too nuts with this because when you're doing cold email and you're doing it for B2B, you don't need like 50 emails in like a nurturing flow. Really, what I would do is have it where it's like, you send the first email, which is the blast, and then you have your, I would just create a flow just for anyone that replies. And then I'll have one for people that have opened, one for people that have clicked. I would just have a follow-up of max like 3 emails. And then I would gauge to see, because the first email you send should get a fairly decent open rate. And we'll go into where to get stats and everything like that as well. Because they're high intent that drops off, would you recommend maybe 1 follow-up or 2? honestly, it doesn't. I would recommend maybe 3 follow-ups max. I can go through in terms of best practices for templates. There's no snapshot for this yet. You can't really upload a snapshot, but really what I would have it is maybe I would go to here and have not open. Let's say not open after the day, and then just have a follow-up email that just says just checking in. Something like that would work really well. If you're having an issue with the DNS setup and it fails, it's likely because you're hosting the domain elsewhere. So what I would do is I'd just delete that domain, create one on GoDaddy or Namecheap because you know it's going to work, and just do it there. Have a domain just for this. I would even do that as best practice anyway, because it still is cold email. If people report your domain as spam and you're using your main site domain, it's going to wreck that deliverability for your newsletter or for your mail list or anything else. So anything to do with cold email would always have a separate domain. Okay. So just to quickly recap, we set up an audience blast. So we've set up our blast. Then you'll go through here. You can go to automations. I do recommend doing autoresponders. In automations, what you're going to do is, let's get rid of this, choose segment. In audience list, set up an event. And the first thing I would do is for people that haven't opened, and I'll do it for about after a day. And then you want to have a follow-up email. The next thing I would do is you can actually choose conditions of it as well. So conditions is basically like, they have, let's say they've opened, but they haven't replied. So that would be a gentle nudge to be able to get them to reply. If they've opened more than 2 times, that could be something we could go a little bit more aggressive. It's hard to give you one size fits all template for every single one of these. But really, if you're doing cold email for B2B, what I'd focus on is that first initial email that you build, the cold email, and then it's just follow-ups after that, which is generally boilerplate. It's saying, hey, just checking in. Did you get this? You can send a case study. What I'll do is I'll put together some email sequences that works for us that you guys can paste in here. And then if you're part of DAS, you can actually use our case studies. And I'll go into an email template. What time is it now? Yeah, we've got time. I'll go on an email template you guys could actually use. I've heard a lot of mail clients fake open the email. Is there a way to determine the user really opened it? Honestly, with what happened with Apple and basically what you're referring to is users with the iOS update, iOS 5, iOS 15 and onwards. Basically, Apple's created a thing that allows you to use a fake email to open emails, and it can massively inflate your open rate. Really, the answer is no. There's no way that you can just make sure that, okay, this is definitely a human that's opened it. What I would do is, you can look at open rate as like a general gauge, but it's not the be all and end all. Really, what I would focus on is just what is the actual conversion rate of replies and then go through there. So yeah, I just wouldn't get too hung up on open rate, to be honest. You can use it as like a gauge, but yeah. Does the number of contacts in each plan 10,000% refer to the total unique contacts at a time? So just for now, I would ignore the 10,000 contacts because this is technically a it's an ESP, so it's a system like MailChimp or anything like that. We need to have like a managed contacts, but for now I would just not really worry about that. If it's not going to like auto upsell you. If it stops you, we can adjust it, but I would just keep it focused where the idea is to focus on 100,000 monthly sends, because we're not going to give you 100,000 monthly sends and then only give you 10,000 slots. Okay. So just to recap, so sender domains, sender profiles, creating a blast, getting your automation set up. What is next? I mean, we can get into some stuff with tags. Tags is, it's literally just, so you create a tag here, create your description of the tag, and then you have your tags set up. Then when you're in your automation workflow, you can add tags based on logic of what people are doing. So let's say, for an example, they don't respond to an email after 2 days, you could have them as a tag, and then you could put them into a different sequence. No, you can't use a subdomain as a separate domain because it's still, a subdomain is in a different domain, and you can't create. I mean, I've never seen it happen before. I'm not an expert on domains, but I'm 90% certain you cannot create an email of a subdomain. And have the contacts opted in. I mean, this is audience lab data. Technically, yes, all contacts have opted in. Doesn't mean they've opted in for your offer. So that's not going to like save you from any kind of, you can't be like, I have a right to email you because you opted in 6 months ago to a newsletter about HVAC and I'm sending you an offer on insurance. Okay. You can't use opt-ins like that. But technically, yes, all data that we collect has opted in because the data has to come from somewhere. We don't scrape it. Um, the website says you can't do cold email. So technically, we in terms of front facing for people that are not in Audience Lab, you can't come in here, scrape a bunch of LinkedIn contacts and just go ham. But if you're in Audience Lab and you're using Audience Lab data, then you can quote unquote cold email. But because it's from our database and technically speaking, it's opt-in data, which we've vetted, then you can use it inside of here. But to the general user that's like, oh, Audience Send, what's that? And they've never heard of Audience Lab and they try to create an account, we have a review process. We'll be like, what data are you using? They're not using Audience Lab data. We're not going to let them use it just because we don't know about any other data source. Yeah, Audience Lab and rich data, that's fine. I mean, you don't have that intent, that's fine. But any data that you enrich, you take from Audience Lab, there is some kind of opt-in that we've collected from that person. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you can legally go out and email whoever you want, call whoever you want, because it's not a one-to-one opt-in. If we have an email from even 2 years ago that somebody opted into an ad about solar and now you're using them from insurance, that doesn't give you the right to email them. You still have to show some kind of compliance there. So you still have to make sure that if they don't want to hear from you, you don't bother them. But in terms of like the data that you use, that's why, yeah, we have that there. Do we need to use only deep verified emails or any audience lab email? You need to make sure the email is verified. Deep verified is our own. If you don't know what deep verified is, essentially we have our own verification company that we built out called Deep Verified. It's deep with 3 E's. I'll pull up the website and show you guys. Now, our actual email engine, we verify in audience lab data, we verify around 5 to 10 million emails per week. So if you go into Audience Lab every week, the verification jumps by a pretty large percent. We focus mainly on B2B emails, but we're about to do B2C as well. We have as well got our own Make app, which at the moment it can do real-time validation and it can do batch validation. We haven't released the app yet because the batch validation, it's a little bit tricky because what you'll do is you'll basically send it to an endpoint and it will be, actually, I'll just show you. Let me log in, give you a look here. Let's get something created. So it's going to make, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Nice. I thought Make was just going to stop. I was like, no. So we've got our deep verify, and you've got real-time email validation and batch email validation. Don't ask me how you can access this yet. We haven't put it live yet, just because we're making sure that batch email validation is easy to use. Right now, it's not that easy to use because you have to put in, where is it? Let's do, which API? I think it's that one. I'll have to go through and check. But right now, you go through and you put in, so you have to have the email addresses in a comma separated array, and then you put a callback URL. So it's not just going to give you a spreadsheet to download. You have to actually have a callback URL, which if you're using Make or Nathan, will likely be another webhook. So we will release a tutorial on how to do that with the batch validation. It's a little bit more tricky than the real time. The real time is super easy. For the real time, you just go through here, you create deep verify, you'll do real time validation, you create your API. I'll show you guys how to generate your own API. I don't know which one of these is the actual API that you guys can use. Sorry, because I've been doing a ton of testing. And then you just have one email address at a time. So for an example, if I was to go through here, had my webhook, and then it was sending through to here, I would then just map my email address there, and then it will verify the email. And it'll tell you if it's valid, if it's catch-all, if it's invalid. What's cool about our deep verify system is that it's able to verify catch-all emails. So it's similar to, like, if you guys know Instantly uses a company called Bounceban, I believe, and Bounceban, we go about 1-to-1 on them, in terms of, like, you get basically the same results through Deep that you would through Bounceban. And Bounceban is expensive, man. It's like $1,700 for 1 million emails, and Deep is not that. For one, you can actually just use deep verified emails in the platform, and you don't pay anything because it's included. If you want to verify your own emails, we'll release Deep in terms of how you can join. For any kind of audience side member, we're just going to make it as cheap as humanly possible without going bankrupt on it. And then you'll be able to verify your emails externally. Otherwise, you can just download a list from Audience Lab. And I believe this is coming through end of this week. It says business emails here. We're just going to have verified business emails. So if you just build a list and you go here and you do business emails, which these ones are going to be verified, and then you download, those will all be deep verified. All right, so let's do a bit of a recap. Scrubby.io. Honestly, in terms of, like, deep, we got the OGs of deep catch-all verification to build this system. So, like, we built our own API for deep. We'll release the API as well if you guys want to use it in Nathan or anything else. And you shouldn't have to use anything else. The only thing that we're not 110% confident with is Microsoft Office emails and verifying those with the catch-all, just because it requires a different way of validation. But if you use Deep Verify for all your emails, you should still see, no matter what, you're going to see at least, I would say, an under 1% bounce rate. That's not a guarantee because sometimes it can fluctuate from like 3%. But I think the lowest we've ever had, the highest we've ever had is like probably 3, maybe 5% at like absolute throttling. And that's people that didn't take our catch-all recommendations. But if you're using it and you only send the valid emails that we give you on Deep, you're going to get around a 1% average bounce rate. So below a 1%, which is good. And honestly, email verification is so overpriced. Like, it's the reason why we created Deep was for us to be able to verify 600 million emails every single quarter was like 7 figures. So we just acquired our own email validation engine from a company that recently exited that we knew would be perfect, and it works amazingly well. So you can just use that. But in terms of what you can do with that and audience send, you can just validate the email, send them to audience send. I'll put out the API docs so you guys can use that. I won't go through it today just because the API isn't quote unquote live. But if you wanted to go from API to deep verify and then push it into audience send, you can do that. What if you want to verify AL personal emails? Yeah, you can do AL personal emails through deep verify as well. Okay, let's do a quick rundown of what we went through. So you've got your domain setup, sending profile, create campaign, and you got your syntax, and then you've got your automation follow-up. In terms of how you can see stats, everything shows inside of here on your dashboard. So you'll be able to see your click-through rates, open rates, subscribers, and everything else, subscriber growth. All your stats is going to show here. I believe as well, where is it? Yeah, I mean, I would just refer to the dashboard for that. If you need more deeper analytics, we can supply that. You shouldn't really need anything else though. This is going to show your emails opened, your emails clicked. It doesn't show, I don't think it shows quote unquote the reply rate based on here, and it doesn't show sentiment. That's something that we're working on building in, but it just won't show it as stats in terms of like if it's a good sentiment or bad sentiment. I'm going to announce Deep hopefully by the end of this week. The API, if you wanted to use the API and you were happy to, you know how to use APIs, and you can do your own curl test, or you can set it up on Naden or something like that. API is good to go. In terms of the Make app, we're just figuring out our batch validation, just because batch validation is a little bit different in terms of you need to send it to an external webhook and then collect the data there and then use it. We're trying to make it so people don't have to use a bunch of operations, but it can do about 100,000 emails per batch. So it's pretty quick. That's the API that we use ourselves. So we already do about 1.2 million to 2 million validations a day just with our own API. Or cold email, how is deliverability to Office and G Suite from SMTP as opposed to ESP match you normally do with cold email sequence like Instant Smart Lead? I'm not sure I fully understand that question. But the biggest thing with this is the reason why you're not warming up domains is because you don't need to, because you're sending from our ESP. So if you go back into here and let's say we go to sending domains and I look at this deep verification, you go to here, your DMARC is mailed to postmasters at audience send. So you're not using deep verification as sending, you're using audience send, but you're pretty much white labeling our ESP to send emails to your clients is the most simple way to put it. So how many sends per day can you get with one sender domain in audience send? As many as you pay for, really. There is no limit. You're not limited by the amount of sending that you have per sending domain. So in Instantly, for an example, I believe Instantly, Mail, Smart Lead, any of those, if you were to send 100,000 emails, the math breaks up to about, you know what, I actually have the exact math here. Let me pull it up. Go to the school. So client success series. I'll link these out, but we're looking at cold email B2B. If you're not using audience send, you're looking at about, where is it? I'm trying to get the exact stats. should be, here we go. So you're looking at about, the formula for that is each domain can send about 150 emails per day. So you're looking at about 150 emails times 30 days, 4,500 emails. So each domain can typically support 3 inboxes max, and each inbox can send about 50 per day. So you're looking at about 150 emails a day per domain. So if you're not using any kind of ESP, that's the general rule that Instantly and other platforms really push for, is to focusing on 150 emails per day for one domain. So if you want to send 150,000 emails per month, then you would need how many domains? What's here? So for 45,000 plus emails, you're looking at 10 domains, 30 inboxes, or 4,500, one domain, 3 inboxes. Or you just come in here, audience send, you don't need all those domains because you're not sending from the actual inbox. You're not sending from that domain's inbox. So when I come in here and I set up, deep verification, and I'm sending from adam@deepverification.com, the actual sending is coming from this ESP, which is audience send. And it's the same for you guys. So you're white labeling our ESP when you're sending emails, which means that you don't have to do any kind of warm up and things like that. Now, while there's no warm up, we do say there's a ramp up. If you come in here and you're sending 100,000 emails off the get, it's probably going to stop you just because we need to make sure the offer's actually good and the messaging is good. So there is some kind of ramp up on here, but it's not warm up. You can start sending emails right away. And if you have good overall spam complaints, which means it's very low, then you can just keep ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up. But you just need to make sure that the offer is good and that it aligns with the list. If you want to get in on audience send, we have created it just here. And you can grab an account. So you can either come in here and just grab a free trial. And then these are the plans. So for $100, you can send 100,000 a month. $200, 250,000. For $1,000, you can send 3 million emails per month, which that would pretty much manage your whole agency. I don't think many people would need to do that right away. I would just stick to this one for now, and then, get your clients to pay for the rest to see how you're going with it. Because all you have to do if you want to launch a client is go out, use their sending domain, and then you can start sending emails. Should I undo the domain, redirect to my main website? Should that fix my DNS issue? Yes. Yeah. So just make sure you have a domain just set up. Inside go to now name cheap. If you're getting an issue that says, so let's say for an example, someone was saying earlier that, when they come into here, it says their domain hasn't been verified yet, and they can't do anything until their domain has been verified. What I'd recommend doing is going into your sender profile, clicking into the sender profile, and then just adjusting the reply to and the from email, updating that, and then it will send a new email, and make sure the email that you add in here is the new domain you want to add. And then you should be able to easily add that domain. Okay, you don't have to set up inboxes. I don't think, I want to make sure people understand. You don't have to set up inboxes inside of here. So this is an ESP. So I'll explain again. So you've got 2 scenarios here. So the first one is you're using Instantly or Smart Lead, and what you're doing is you buy a domain and you upload it, and what they do is they rotate those domains. So it's an IP rotation type thing. So what it's doing is basically taking the domains that you bought and the inboxes, and it's rotating them. And then all those replies show up in one inbox later on. For audience send, you just need, you have the audience send domain. So the audience send ESP. And then once you install the records, you're just attaching your domain onto ours, and then you can send hundreds and thousands of emails. For a new domain, I will not have email set up, right? So how would I verify, please? Just you have to kind of put the cart before the horse, and whatever, if your new domain is, xyzbrand.com, say your email is, name@xyzbrand.com. And even if you haven't set up that email yet, you need to go through, get the domain set up, and then set up that email, and then you'll be able to get a email to there. I don't know what space mail is, but I would stick to mail to Namecheap and GoDaddy just to keep it simple. And then all the guides we're going to do is for those ones. And just make sure you have a domain just for that client. Yeah, so your emails will come from your name at your domain, but it'll be going through our ESP. That's exactly it. So you guys can use whatever you want to buy the domains, but just to keep things simple, for our tutorials, we've shown you how to do it on GoDaddy. So I would recommend, if you are lost and you don't want to get very technical, just do what we do and go to GoDaddy. It's still great. You can get a domain for like $5 a month. And you don't need a lot of domains. You just need the one. If you have, let's say for an example, if you're doing this for roofing, or let's say you're doing this for your agency, then you just need that one domain. If you have 5 verticals and you want 1 vertical per domain, you can do it that way. But yeah, you don't need a certain amount of inboxes. You don't need a certain amount of domains. The only reason why you have a domain is really for branding purposes and for compliance. Because otherwise you would be sending from your name at audiencesend.com, which obviously you don't want. Okay, so who understands this? Let's give me a 1 out of 5 on how much you understand. And give me a 5, you can go out and you can crush this, and give me a 1 if you have no idea. Okay, cool. Lots of 5s. That's great. Yeah, if you want to jump into Audience Send, guys, here's the link. Don't click here because the trials are tied to plans. Go down here and you can click one of these. If you aren't sure, just jump in on a free trial and you can just play around with it. I'll chuck it in there. Cool. Cool. So this is a separate, it's a separate platform. So this is essentially, it's designed for anyone who's inside of Audience Lab. Technically, somebody could type in Audience Send and be in here, but we do vet whoever goes on here. And to keep the ESP alive, how we use it on the side as well is managing email lists in the same way you would for like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp. But for Audience Lab customers, you guys can technically, quote unquote, go cold on here, so long as you make sure you're using data from the platform. Okay. Cool. Very up for time. All right. So I'll wrap this one up. So this one is, if you guys, this is how you send emails on Audience Send, how you get set up on Audience Send. Again, we have, if you go to the docs, so if you go to docs.audiencelab.io, there's a ton of stuff here, but if you scroll all the way down and you go to activate, we have our activation series. And you've got here, sign up, your audience domain, load lists, and everything else. Okay. So that is how you get started on Audience Send. And I'll wrap that one up there.